It wasn't in the script for the trigger to be pulled.
Well, the trigger wasn't pulled. I didn't pull the trigger.
So you never pulled the trigger?
No. I would never point a gun at anyone and pull a trigger at them. Never. That would.
But you would point a gun at them. That's acceptable. It's only unacceptable if you don't pull the trigger. And listen, you got to look at the balance of evidence, right? Sure, he can say he didn't pull the trigger. Is there counter evidence? Yeah, the gun just doesn't work that way. The hammer can't drop without the trigger being pulled.
That was the training that I had. You don't point a gun at me and pull the trigger.
But it's okay to point a gun at someone without ensuring there's no live rounds in the gun.
He told ABC News that he was watching and agrees that Alec did not pull the trigger and that his finger was outside the trigger guard.
Yeah, I wonder if David Halls is going to say that on the stand.
So you have this Colt 45, you just pulled...
The hammer as far back as I could without cocking the actual...
And you're holding onto the hammer.
I'm holding that. I'm just showing. I go, how about that? Does that work? Do you see that? Do you see that?
If you pull the hammer back to halfway, it gets caught in the half-cock notch. If you pull it back all the way and let it go without depressing the trigger, it falls back to the half-cock notch. The only way it falls all the way forward to discharge around is if the trigger is depressed.
She goes, yeah, that's good. I let go of the hammer. Bang, the gun goes off.
Okay.
Well, everyone is horrified. They're shocked. It's loud. They don't have their earplugs in. No one was. The gun was supposed to be empty. I was told, I was handed.
If it was supposed to be empty, how difficult would it have been to spin the cylinder and ensure that it was in fact empty? Empty means no dummy rounds either.
An empty gun, or if there were cosmetic rounds, nothing with a charge at all, a flash round, nothing.
So he gets very ambiguous about the intended state of the gun. Was it empty? Was it supposed to have blanks in it that would flash and make smoke and noise? Was it supposed to have dummies in it?
Because remember, the idea that someone put a live bullet in the gun was not even in reality.
He loves talking about the bullet. Where the bullet came from. To him, that's the only legal question here. Where did the bullet come from? Because that would have nothing to do with him. It also has nothing to do with why was the muzzle pointed at Helena Hutchins without ensuring that there was live ammo in the gun.
In the aftermath of the shooting, a torrent of criticism.
The first thing you do when you pick up that gun is you make sure that it's never pointed at anybody.
He should have known that an AD handing you a gun and saying it's cold isn't the same as several people showing you an empty gun.
If I were holding that gun, I would have checked it, wouldn't you?
Mm-hmm. And if Alec Baldwin, if the scene had called for him to hold that gun to his temple, you don't think he would have made sure there was no live rounds in that gun?
People said to me, I got countless people online saying, you idiot, you never point a gun at someone. Well, unless you're told it's empty and it's the director of photography who's instructing you on the angle for a shot we're going to
do. You never do that, except in his unique, specific circumstances. Then it's okay.
And she and I had this thing in common where we both thought it was empty, and
they thought it was empty. How about you make sure it's empty? That's the only way to 100% eliminate the prospect of unintentionally causing someone else's death or serious bodily injury.
It wasn't. And that's not her responsibility. That's not my responsibility. Who's
okay? As an actor, you are ultimately responsible for your own safety and the safety of your fellow cast members. That's SAG-AFTRA. It is, by industry standards, everyone's responsibility, including yours.
Whose responsibility remains to be seen. But
there are some who say you're never supposed to point a gun at anyone on a set, no matter what.
Unless the person is the cinematographer who's directing me where to point the gun for her camera angle. That's exactly what happened.
I don't think he thought that George was going to ask him that question. He looks a little upset here. I hope he doesn't have a gun on him.
That day, I did exactly what I've done every day on that movie.
Which is what?
Which is that there's an armorer there, and that word is new to me. In the years I've been in this
What did you call it?
It was a prop guy or woman. And the problem,
He's been in 75 movies, many of which involved guns, and he's never, in all his decades acting, he's never heard the term, the job description, armorer. To him, armorer and prop person are interchangeable things.
the prop person would come and sometimes they would insist on demonstrating for you and the camera crew. They take the gun. If it was a contemporary gun, they show you the chamber, they show you the clip. They say, the gun is cold.
That's a good way for no one to get killed, right? Everyone's looking at the gun. The actor and someone else is manipulating the gun to show him there's nothing in the chamber, there's nothing in the magazine, or if there's stuff in there, they're dummy rounds. Look, they rattle, they have a hole, there's no primer. Or if there's supposed to be blanks that are going to make noise and smoke, that they're crimped on the front.
And you look and go, thank you. And in the 40 years.
Sometimes that would happen, not all the time.
Well, but no, sometimes they wouldn't demonstrate to me. Some insisted on demonstrating. They would.
How about that? Does that sound like safety? No, Mr. Baldwin, we have to do this. Otherwise, somebody could get killed.
Do the demonstration for everybody there right before we rolled the camera or rehearsed. Then there were others who they didn't do that because I trusted them to do the job. And again, this is not just me.
So he knows the way to do it that eliminates the risk of unintentional death or serious bodily injury. And he knows there's a way to do it that retains a risk of unintentional death or serious bodily injury. And he's treating them like equally viable and lawful options. They're not.
Me pointing a gun at somebody else, people pointing guns at me. I've gotten shot and killed in films before where people had to shoot a flash round at me, and I trusted them to do their job.
He trusted them to do their job. That's their job. That's their job. Except SAG-AFTRA says safety is everybody's job, including the actors.
And in the 40 years I've been in this business, all the way up until that day, I never had a problem.
How many times do you think you handled a gun in those 40 years?
Oh, God, I don't know. What amazes me is how many bullets, how many rounds of bullets do you believe have been fired on the sets of movies and TV shows in the last 75 years?
No idea.
Right. It couldn't even be above 1 billion. You've had hundreds and hundreds of millions of bullets fired on the sets of films and TV shows, and 4 or 5 people were killed. Now, those deaths are tragic and abhorrent.
So this is not helpful to you, Alec Baldwin, because we have those millions or billions of rounds fired and only a handful of deaths resulting. Because 99.99% of the time, we're following the safety protocols of not pointing a gun at an actual person without ensuring there's no live rounds in the gun. And by the way, today's safety rules are a consequence of those handfuls of deaths. People died, so we would have these safety rules. And yet you're blithely just saying, I assumed. It's someone else's responsibility. When I point a gun at another human being without ensuring personally that the gun in my hand doesn't have live rounds in it.